So today is August 4th, 2023. It's 9 a.m. I'm Kelly Zakovic, representing the City of Savannah Municipal Archives. I'm interviewing Tracey Renzi for the Savannah LGBTQ plus Oral History Project. We're conducting this interview over Zoom. So thank you for joining us today. So to go ahead and get started, can you tell us your full name, please?
Yes, Tracey Renzi.
And when and where were you born?
I was born and raised in Virginia in 1969 and spent a big chunk of my life in Savannah. I'm sorry, let me try that again. I spent a big chunk of my life in Virginia, moved to Tennessee, moved to Rhode Island, and moved to Savannah in 2015.
And what brought you to Savannah?
I got a job with Memorial.
Okay. Is that your current employer?
No, I am now working for a company out of Milwaukee.
Okay. And can you please tell us your pronouns and how you identify?
Yes, I am a lesbian and my pronouns are she and her.
Thank you so much. So can you describe your involvement with the LGBTQ community here in Savannah?
Yes, I am the chair of First City Network, Georgia's oldest LGBTQ organization. I got involved with them in 2021 when I met two former board members and they were trying to rebuild after COVID. And that's really how my great involvement in the LGBTQ community got started.
And what did you start doing for them when you started?
I was just a regular board member. We were working on rebuilding. We do a monthly social, which is gone back to the start of First City Network back in the 80s. We are trying to build relationships with other areas of the community, not just in the Savannah area, but in the outskirts of Savannah, Richmond Hill, Pooler, even a little further south into Liberty County, and bring our support for the LGBTQ community into the Southeast Georgia region.
Alrighty. So as your role as the chair, what are your functions today? I mean, what are your...
So I work closely with our members. We have over 110 members. We do a monthly social, which is each month is somebody's house. And we try to plan them so that it's not the usual, let's just get together and socialize. We try to make it like we've got a pool party coming up for August social. We're working with somebody to do a Halloween social in October. We try to make them themes depending on what's going on with the organization or the month. We have supported trans and the trans march that happened a few months ago. We are trying to work with Georgia Southern to build some internships with some of their programs to give college students not only experience for their internships that they're required to do, but also nonprofit experience, getting them involved in the board members, in the board meetings and seeing how a nonprofit works.
Okay. So maybe we'll probably come back to all of that with some of these other questions, but how would you describe Savannah's current relationship with the LGBTQ community?
Very good. Growing up in Virginia and then spending so many years in Rhode Island, this is probably the best supported LGBTQ community I've experienced. There's a lot of great support. You know, even though there's First City Pride, First City Network, we still support each other. We'll go to each other's events. We've got two different missions, but ultimately the same mission to support our community and get our messages out there and stop the harassment and the discrimination against the LGBTQ community and all members of it, not just those who identify as LGBTQ, but our allies and supporters as well. I know this administration, Mayor Van Johnson and the City Council have done a great job in trying to make sure that regardless of how we identify, we are treated as citizens and as people and focus on ending the discrimination.
Have you seen Savannah's relationship with the LGBTQ community change over your time here in town?
I think it's gotten better. And I think that it helps, when you have leaders who recognize it and want to support it and understand that just because we may not identify how somebody thinks we should doesn't mean we should be treated differently. I think that is a huge identification to, hey, we're going to support everybody. And it starts at the top, but it takes all of us to when we see something happening, stop it. When something is really good, cheer it, let it be known. And remember that just because we're different doesn't mean we're different. But just because we're different for you doesn't mean we're different.
And has the First City Network changed in your time here? Have you noticed any changes there?
We have actually recruited some younger members. So a lot of our membership has a lot of history with First City Network. We have one of our board members was around at the time that First City Network was starting back in the 80s. And we've focused on making sure that we maintain our history, but still move us forward. And that means looking at other areas that we can work with the community, bringing in younger board members, bringing in younger membership. I am in my 50s and I don't know a whole lot about social media, website hosting and things like that. I can play with Facebook, but we need people who can support us in that way and still help move our message forward while not forgetting what came before us to make us who we are today. And making sure that those who fought for their rights to meet in public, doing it behind closed doors, are not forgotten. And that story is still in the back of all of our minds as we move First City Network forward.
Nice. Could you tell us the name of the board member that's been around since the 80s?
Yes, Mark Kruger, and his last name is spelled Krueger.
Who are the other board members?
There's a gentleman named Jacob Smith, and he is our treasurer. And me, and that's it. There's only 3 board members right now. So if you know anybody, Kelly, who's looking for a board member, bring them in.
Sounds good. Could you tell us the difference between the First City Network and like First City Pride?
Yes, actually, First City Pride at one time was Savannah Pride, and First City Network helped with the development of Savannah Pride. They originally, when I first moved here, Savannah Pride was strictly focused on pride activities and the younger generation. First City Network was focused on possibly a little bit more activism with what's been going on, especially in the last 5 or 6 years. The older crowd, and I hate to say the older crowd, but those older than the 20 somethings, and that generation moving forward. And while we still are separate entities, we do our own events, but we'll support each other's events. They do a lot of the social activities more out in public, whereas our social activities are at someone's house. Everybody's invited to them, but they're not as broadcast across the area as Pride Center would be.
Okay. So in your time here in Savannah, are there any specific places or organizations that you would describe as safe as inclusive for the community?
I'll start with Club One. They are the LGBTQ club of the area. They're really, really, really good. And they support both First City Pride and First City Network in so many ways. So they're hugely helpful. There's Trans Fam, which is run out of Pride. There's PFLAG for parents and families of lesbians and gays. There's the Lesbian and Gay Film Society in Savannah. Georgia Southern and SCAD are really good partners for the LGBTQ community, and especially Georgia Southern on I can speak only for the Armstrong campus. but we've really got a lot of support from them. We've got a couple professors who have been willing to work with us to get us internships. There's somebody on their police force has helped us when we've had questions or we need something. They're willing to help us and get us in contact with people we need to talk to. There's several restaurants and eateries in the area that are huge. Crystal Bear Parlor I go there all the time, and never once have I felt uncomfortable being there. I'm very friendly with a lot of their staff, and never felt like, oh my God, they're gonna hate me because I'm LGBTQ. I can't think of it now. The Five Spot is also a really good supporter of the community as well. And then Sweet Patricia's Bakery down on Haversham.
Okay. So who would you say are some of the important leaders in our LGBTQ community, and what either were their contributions in the past or are their contributions currently?
I'm going to start with Mark Kruger. So I met Mark very accidentally a few years ago at an event. It was just, we happened to be at the same place at the same time, and our paths didn't cross again for a couple of years. But his knowledge and history of LGBTQ, not just in Savannah, but from his entire life, is amazing. He was for part of the original people who started First City Network back in the 80s. And he's got amazing stories, both good and bad. I've heard stories where he was thrown out of clubs just because he was gay. And he is a strong advocate for our community, but he's also let's do it the right way. Let's not go, throwing bombs and bottle rockets and stuff. Let's get our message across the right way. And I could sit and listen to him. His history and his stories are fantastic. Pam Miller is another. She's been with First City Network for, I think she's going to kill me if I forget this number. I think 30 years, 28, 30. And she's got a lot of great stories with First City Network. She was First City Network's first female chair. And she's still a board member. She's still a First City Network member, and another one with great stories, great history, and great advice to offer. Went to both of them many times as I've worked my way through the board, because understanding the history is going to help us move forward the right way. And knowing what we can and can't do, what we should and shouldn't do is huge. And they are so great resources in so many different ways.
Yes. This project was sort of Mark's baby for a long time.
Really? I didn't know. He never told me that. I'm going to see him tomorrow night at our social. So I'm going to talk to him about that. I love this.
So are there any specific events or traditions in Savannah's LGBTQ community that we should know about?
Every month, the first Saturday of every month, unless that weekend is a holiday weekend, then it's the second Saturday, First City Network does a First City Saturday social. And we do 12 of them a year. And they are at a different member's house every month, excuse me. And we post them on our website. We send out an email. Anybody is welcome. It's a $5 donation or a covered dish. And this tomorrow night's is at somebody's house who's got a pool. So we know we're going to have great turnout. Every March, we do an oyster roast down in, there's a church building off of 80 right before Wilmington Island. And we do that oyster roast. This year, I think it's going to be March 10th in 2024. And we'll start promoting that in January and February. And that's, again, open to the public. Anybody can come. We provide the oysters, and we'll have a lot of information coming out about that in the coming months. We're planning the Halloween social for October, a Christmas social for December. And we are working on a community project for November. We'll be finalizing that at our board meeting on Monday and have the details out about that. But we're going to be working on a LGBTQ person's house in Isle of Hope. She is older, much older than I am, and is, if we all get there and she just needs a little help. So we're planning that, and that's going to take the place of our November social. Instead of having it at night, we're going to have it during the day, and just ask people to come out and help a little bit with this woman's house, and get it picked up, and kind of just a little tidied up, and give back to somebody who gave so much to our community.
Yeah, that's really nice. So other than that one, are they largely just social events, just a chance for everybody to come together? Is there like advocacy involved in any of this, or mostly just?
We are building that out. So coming out of COVID, and in 2021, starting to rebuild, and it's taken a while, but we're starting to work with some local organizations to bring in vaccinations to our socials, for testing to our socials. We're trying to work with Georgia Southern now to get some internships, and then for their students, and also get in with their sociology team and department, and work with them, and build our community on the south side of Savannah as well.
Very nice. So in your experience, or from what you've heard, can you recall any pivotal points in time or major events that were turning points for the LGBTQ community in Savannah?
In my time here, I'm going to go with the passing of the legislature that the city council did to protect LGBTQ rights. That was huge. And that, I think, I don't think I had been living here very long when that happened, and that was kind of an eye-opener to me, is how progressive and open Savannah really is, to the point that the government will take action to make sure that people have the same rights across the board, regardless of who they are or how they identify.
Can you speak at all to the state of healthcare for LGBTQ members, individuals in our community?
That's a tough question, because I'm very opinionated on the state of healthcare in America. I think there's a lot of room for improvement across the board. I think, unlike a heterosexual person, homosexuals have to look at, is this physician or care provider going to take care of me because of my sexuality? And there are I have friends who will only see certain physicians because of that. I've heard stories from friends who they've walked away from care providers because the homophobia has come out. So I think it's imperative that we support those who support the LGBTQ community, while still trying to fix those who don't want to, for their own personal reasons, despite taking an oath they would do no harm.
Are there any practices or individuals that are particularly friendly that you're aware of?
There is one, and I don't. Two of my friends go to this particular person. I will get his name and email it to you. I don't see him. I see somebody at Memorial Medical Associates on Waters Avenue, and the physician I see is phenomenal. So,
would you say that Savannah is inclusive of all queer identities equally, or like lesbian, gay, trans? Like, are there any issues that any different identities face that others might not?
I think, the trans community probably faces more than the lesbians and the gays, and I think that's part of that is the political rhetoric that's going on the last few years, and the belief that because you are not what I want you to be, you have to be wrong, and it's going to take a lot. I liken what the trans people are going through now as to what LGBTQ went through in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and fighting for those rights to be recognized as who they are, and not what people want them to be or think they should be. And it's not going to stop anytime soon. As you know, it's a volatile issue, unfortunately. And despite the fact that probably less than 2% of the population identify as trans, there are over 400 anti-LGBTQ bills working their way through state legislatures right now. And that's scary, because all that does is enhance the negativity and the rhetoric and the fear for people, instead of stopping and getting to know somebody for who they are. It's the belief of one or two people. And I think the trans community is facing more of that now than they probably have in the past. And I just don't see it. It's going to be an uphill battle, and we're here to support them in any way we can.
Is your membership at First City Network pretty diverse, in terms of identities and?
Yes. Yeah, we've actually, somebody asked me this a few months ago. We have actually had socials at trans people's houses. So our view is, if you are welcoming us in, we are going to come.
Very nice. Are there any specific landmarks in Savannah associated with the LGBTQ community? You mentioned a couple businesses, but any other sites that we should know about?
The First City Pride Center is the first one that comes to mind. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
So I wanted to come back. I don't think anybody has told us about you said Gay and Lesbian Film Society. Do you know anything more about that? Can you tell us?
I don't have it in front of me, but I can get it to you.
Okay. Are there any other organizations that you're a part of? Any of the ones that you listed, PFLAG or Club One, or?
I spend a lot of time at Club One, and I will tell you, Kelly, for you or anybody listening, the Savannah Cabaret does phenomenal shows, and they do them every other month, and they are fun and they are entertaining. And if you get a chance, my only complaint with them is they never check my schedule to make sure I'm going to be in town when they have them. And I'm going to miss the one coming up in August, but they are just, that Savannah Cabaret is phenomenal. And that whole group of people and that share their talents with us. If you get time to spend even 5 minutes getting to know some of them, you're just, it's amazing. They're wonderful people. And they, like I said, they help us out too. I've never gone to Travis or Trey or Rick or any of them and said First City Network needs something, and they've not been there to help us.
I was gonna say, anybody there that we should know about, or names that we should know?
Rick Garman is the director / writer for the plays. Travis Cole and Trey, and I can't think of his last name now, are owners of Club One and are also part of the cabaret. But if you can get in touch with Rick or Travis or Trey, they'll open that whole door, because there's so many talented people there. Gwen and Valerie and Justin, and I know I'm missing a whole bunch of people who are all going to be like, you sit and watch us every month. But yeah, I'm sure they'd be happy to open their time to you. I've sat and talked to Rick, I don't know, about a year ago. We went to dinner, and his story is phenomenal. And how he ended up from, I think, Iowa to California to Savannah, and what he does, and how they just welcome everybody regardless, and how they want to just use their talents and have some fun.
Any performers that we should know about?
Justin Kent, I think his last name is, Gwen Leahy, Cammy, I can't think of Cammy's name. Hang on one second. Let me pull it up on Facebook. Cammy Hall. Rick's last name is Garman. Travis Cheek, Travis Spangenberg. Are you detecting a trend of names here? See if I can find somebody else. Valerie's last name is Lavelle, Lavelle. Trey's last name is Norris. And those are the folks I am aware of. I'm sure there's more whose names I just don't know. There's a bunch of folks I see here and there in some of these shows. But if they're willing to talk to you, they've got great stories, and they're just, again, if you can get a chance to go check one of their plays, and always they do a great job at the Rocky Horror Picture Show in October every year. It's a lot of fun.
Very nice. So pivoting a little bit to you, would you like to tell us a little bit about your journey, your story at all?
Sure. So I was born in Virginia, and I think I knew at a really early age that something was different. Like, I would look at women and get this. My first crush was my first grade teacher, Mrs. Rowe. But you know, a child of the 70s and 80s, I was not comfortable letting the world know who I was, and you know, almost 54-year-old Tracey looks back at 20-year-old Tracey and 30-year-old Tracey and sees now all the things I was doing for my career and for other things was to avoid having to focus on me, if that makes sense. But when I was in Rhode Island, I was friends with some folks who were drag queens, and I would hang out with them and help them with their pride block parties and all sorts of things, and that was where I felt most comfortable. But it wasn't until I moved down to Savannah. I came out in 2014. So I was 44 years old when I came out. And I was still at 44 afraid to tell my parents. And when my mother found out, and she called me, and I'll never forget this. She's kind of just chit-chatting about stuff, and I'm like, is something up? Like, it wasn't a usual conversation with my mother. And she said to me, is there something you want to tell me? And as soon as she said that, I knew. And I said, is there something you want to ask me? Because I didn't want to answer that question. And so I said, if you're asking me if I'm a lesbian, the answer is yes. And I could feel my body just tighten up, because I was just waiting for that. Oh my God, are you kidding me? We're Catholic, we're this, we're that. And she says, why didn't you tell me? And that was her. She was not upset that I was a lesbian. She was upset that I never in my life told her that this is how I felt. So it still took a while. I mean, it's hard to undo 44 years of covering something up. But when I moved down here, it was like a new life for me, because I knew one person, and that was a friend that I met in the 7th grade, who we just accidentally landed in the same town after, going our separate ways after high school. And nobody knew me. So I could say, yes, no one's going to judge me, because they didn't know the old Tracey. They only knew this Tracey who moved down here, last week. And it's taken a while, but I'm now comfortable with every aspect of who I am. And I'm not afraid to tell people I'm a lesbian. And if you like it or you don't, I can't help that.
Very nice. So you were nominated by somebody in our ITS department. How is it being a lesbian in the IT world? Is there any
it's probably as difficult. It's probably more difficult to be a woman in the IT world, and that's better now than it was when I got into IT. Literally, it'll be 25 years ago this month. So I started working when I was 6. But I think there were so many out now, more there. So then when I got into it, that I don't think people think about it now. And I think we all find our own homes, if that makes sense, and what's comfortable for us. And we also learn to avoid the people, unless we have to, work with them. You don't like me, I get it, but you have to work with me. I thankfully have not had an issue at any of my jobs where I was discriminated against because I was a lesbian.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share about your story?
Just the cliche is just be true to yourself and be who you are, and you will find your people. It's so stupid sounding, but it is so true. And I know the struggles of of young people trying to identify who they are and what they are, but you will find it. It will be there, and just be true to yourself, and pick up the phone, send a text if something gets too hard, because this moment is temporary, and there are always people who are going to help.
So last question, what future do you imagine for Savannah as it relates to the LGBTQ community?
With the progress this administration has made, and what I know they're trying to do, I think it's a very bright future. You know, we're always going to have the homophobes and the discrimination, but I think I'm a white hat always wins. I'm good always wins, and it just takes a while to get there. I think there's a lot of hope for the LGBTQ community in Savannah as we continue to move forward with human rights for everybody.
Thank you. So is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we go?
First City Network Saturday socials, come on out. We have them every month. Check our Facebook, check our emails, check with any of us who are members. There's 110 members in the area. You know, anybody is welcome to these events.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording now.